When I was a child, I ate 4 dozen eggs. Hi, and welcome to Name Not Found, a video game podcast where we don't know what we're doing and we just talk about things. I'm sorry. We took a week off because, as you can tell, I went to Disney, and, my brain is just full of Disney things, and we met Gaston.
I hope you ate those eggs daily so you could get large and, hopefully you don't get to be the size of a barge. That's all that I hope. And I'm Colin, and this is Name Not Found. So...
Just a side note. Did they live on a river in that movie?
Okay, so God, now you're going to send me off on this tangent. So the beginning of that movie is still one of my favorite opening songs in anything. It's just so catchy. Bonjour, 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 bonjour. But I still can't remember exactly. I think but don't they live near the forest? Because he goes into the forest and then there's the wolves.
Exactly. So how does he know what a barge looks like? Okay.
Well, it's set in France, so it's probably there's a ton of rivers in France. There's the Rhone, there's the and a bunch of other
I just
rivers.
Like the idea that he doesn't know what a barge actually looks like. So it's just
he uses antlers in all of his decorating. So probably is well traveled. But speaking of well traveled, Chris and I well traveled the internet and found a couple of stories. Unfortunately, we didn't give a shit about most of them. For instance, Destiny 2. Cool, you're making another Destiny, you're burning the whole thing down and doing the whole thing. We've never played a lick of it. So, don't really care.
All I liked is that the trailer had Nathan Fillion in it. That's it.
Yeah, Nathan Fillion playing James Rayner, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And, check it out. Speaking of James Rayner.
Wow, good. Wow.
Did we just do a competent segue? What? No, the big story that Chris and I are pretty excited about, and actually two of my very close friends are ecstatic about, is Blizzard, or Activision Blizzard now, is making a reboot of Starcraft Brood War. Now, normally when you think of a reboot, you'd think, they'll change a bunch of stuff and do, not only do the graphics, but add more characters, da-da-da-da. But this is honestly almost more like a patch to the original Starcraft Brood War. It's just doing textures. You can run in the original client. And this is a game that Chris and I both played a lot of.
Too much, almost.
Yeah.
It just, goddamn, we kept thinking, need more pylons. Fuck.
You must. Well, that reminds me of the one time you tried to play my sensibilities in a game of Cards Against Humanity, and you must construct additional pylons, and I snubbed you. And I know you'll never forgive me, but I stand by my decision.
You just reminded me of that, and now I hate you, and we're gonna stop this podcast. It's over now. Bye. I'm super excited about this. My question: when they redo the textures, will they have to redo the voice acting, or are they gonna keep that the same?
I'm almost positive they are going to. Here's another interesting point. So they're doing the textures in some stuff, and then they're just scaling up some of the other polygons that were, more hand drawn, so that they can just be of a higher fidelity, up to 1080p. But they're redoing those awesome CGI, crappy 90s CGI cutscenes in new CGI. So we're going to get to see a fresh Marine get attacked by a Zergling. We're going to get to see some Phoenix. We're going to get to see some Kerrigan, some Raynor.
Oh man, okay. All right. I mean, I'm on board with that. I mean, I mean, obviously they need to keep all the things the same because it's still played today by Korean players and a huge community. As much as StarCraft 2 is huge, but at the same time, the competitive people play for the most part, Brood War and stuff. Am I right?
Well, yeah, you definitely are. I mean, that's not to discredit the StarCraft 2 community. It's still definitely there. But the big thing is that Brood War was always seen sort of as this just beautifully balanced game, and partially by design and partially by accident in terms of some of the glitches you can do, which they've left in. They've left in the pathing errors that like people use to this day. They've left in mutilus stacking, which is a strategy you can do, like things that weren't intended by the game developers, but like also led to the balance of like the game itself. But I think what would be interesting is sort of looking at Blizzard's sort of thinking here. So are they doing this in reaction to the fact that StarCraft 2 is waning and they're trying to like reinvigorate that base, or is it simply like a pretty easy cost benefit in terms of work towards product actually generated? Like, what do you think their thinking is here?
Well, I personally think that they already kind of have the textures. I mean, they redid a lot of the same, not the same unit types and the way everything works, but I mean, the previous units from StarCraft 1 are in StarCraft 2. I mean, you can bring those over in a certain fashion, I mean, in their own way. However, I think, I mean, it's an easy thing for them to do, and I don't think it has to do with the success that they have or anything like that, or it's waning. I mean, StarCraft 2 is definitely waning. I mean, am I right in thinking, is there one more expansion everyone's waiting for? Am I correct?
No, I think they did. It started off with StarCraft Wings of Liberty, and then it was Legacy of the Void? Yeah, Legacy of the Void, and then Heart of the Swarm.
Okay.
Were the three, and one for each expansion adding a new campaign for Terran, Protoss, and Zerg, respectively. I can't remember what order they're in. That might be the wrong order. But this is specifically a remake of StarCraft Brood War, which is the expansion to StarCraft. This isn't vanilla StarCraft 1. This is the Brood War expansion, which is the commonly, the most prevalent game.
Yeah. Let me think. The idea that sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. Help me, Colin.
Well, I mean, just sort of going back to the point we were talking about before, and you should stop thinking about Disney and start thinking about the Valkyries.
Need more eggs, okay?
Because one of the major changes, and this is not on my knowledge. This is from my good friend John, aka Gunza, aka Phasers. Shout outs to my team partner in Super Smash Brothers. But he was telling me that the one thing they did change is in the original game, if you had a unit called a Valkyrie, they could fire a lot of missiles. And because of how rudimentary the game was, the more missiles you had on screen, eventually it hit the sprite limit, which, as we know from playing classic games like Sonic the Hedgehog and Mega Man, at a certain point, you can despawn things if you put too many sprites on the screen. You can see that from not getting all of your rings back in Sonic. They can't spawn 100 rings. They only spawn about like 35 when you get hit.
Yeah.
So that is fixed. So that, in his opinion, it won't change the meta drastically, but you can't know that. It would really only affect one matchup, which is Terran v Terran, which usually goes to the late game where Valkyries actually make a difference. Disclaimer: I know nothing about I know very little about the competitive scene in StarCraft Brood War. Please don't.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get a ton of comments of people just saying, "Well, technically, I mean, you need to min-max." I'm like, I don't know shit about this game. Okay. I just like it. All right.
Well, to be fair, getting a ton of comments would also be a false statement. So maybe we should roll.
Listen, we get plenty of comments because I write them all myself. Okay. We get plenty of comments because we have so many followers that aren't me under 5 different accounts. No,
it's not our Smurf accounts. Playing Inside Out with ourselves and being like, "I hate you, I love you."
I'm sorry.
I don't know why they sound like Muppets.
That's what your Inside Out people sound like, Colin. That is exactly what your Inside Out people.
No, Chris, we're missing a golden opportunity here. We should do a voice pack for the new Brood War, but have all the voices be Muppets. So could you imagine Raynor as Kermit, where it would just be like,
Right.
I don't know where Kerrigan is.
Proceeding. Ready to roll out. Identify a target.
Or like Kerrigan is Miss Piggy.
I cannot do Miss Piggy. I don't know.
No, neither can I. I was thinking about it. I was like, can I do Miss Piggy? And I was like, you know what? I can't. But I can let the listener put that into their brain hole and just absorb Miss Piggy and Kerrigan in one. But that's the other thing that's really interesting. When you look at StarCraft 2, the story is really good in some parts.
Right.
And then it goes totally off the rails near the end. It goes full anime, which I'm all about. But like, what was so cool about the original StarCraft was it was so grounded. It was just like, this is what's happening. Okay, grounded isn't the right word. I mean, you've got crazy race of Protoss who made the Zerg because fuck human. Oh no, human Zerg to say fuck Protoss, and then it just all went to shit.
Right.
But disclaimer, that may or may not be true. That's what I remember from playing this game like 15 years ago. But what would be interesting to see is how new players respond to this game. You know, like how to like somebody who has never played this game might get a chance to play Brood War and might like it. That's so
man, somebody gets to play Brood War for the first time again? Oh my god. That makes me jealous. Although I will say this is like, you say you don't know a lot about this game. My extent of knowledge and remembrance of this game, I mean, I love this game and I remember pieces of it, but the reason I said voice acting in the beginning is because the most of what I remember is what everyone says. You know?
Oh, dude, I can still do Goliath Online or the Fire Bats. I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Yeah.
Or like I mean, I could do like and every Zerg unit.
Exactly. And it's just those, and of course, you know, you have the tanks, and it's just that's the best one. I'm sorry, every time, because whenever I get in the car with somebody and they play, it's like ready to roll out. It's just like, okay, cool.
Yeah. Fucking, I would say all the time when somebody was saying like, "Oh, are you ready to go?" and I would just be like, "Intaro Adun," just like fall in line. I wouldn't go so far as to do my life for hire, but I always thought like, "Intaro Adun." That sounds like it's like, yeah, I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, sure, yeah.
Moving along. Thanks, it's like zealots.
Yeah, thanks, zealots. I also like to point out that they were called zealots, which is just like they were a great, awesome unit, but then you kind of go, oh well, those that just means they're holy people that are here to cause gen. Okay. Fantastic.
Well, yeah, the Protoss are kind of like, they're super technological, but also super religious. And then you're like, it's like like if a Templar showed up at your door, they probably wouldn't cast Psionic Storm. They would probably be like, "Have you heard about the Lord and Savior Ire?" Like, what? Have to go making.
I'm sorry. I'm just imagining like the classic with a book in his hand at your door, and you're just looking through your curtain and going, "Ah, shit."
It's a goddamn Templars.
Goddamn Templars again. I'm not home, and he's like looking, and you just close the curtain. Not here. He did not see me. Shit.
Oh my god.
Sir, have you heard down the Lord and Savior Ire? Oh.
We have crystals. No, you keep your crystals in your goddamn carriers.
You keep goddamn carriers. And no, you don't need more pylons. You have enough.
You must construct additional. Okay, so for the risk of us memeing out to every single voice pack,
yep.
The big takeaway from this is when you're thinking about because this game we played a long time ago, but I mean, we were talking about it offline. Like, there are so many games that are starting to come back because as their audiences get older, that nostalgia gets bigger and bigger. I mean, it used to be all 80s nostalgia, now it's 90s nostalgia. Mm-hmm. But with games, it's becoming a very, very lucrative thing because it's never been done before. You know, like, you started it off with like the classics of the classics, your Tetrises, your Asteroids, your Galagas, your Miss Pac, like those were all remade. But now we're getting into the first 3D, like, well, 2D isometric and now like more 3D remakes. So the biggest 2D remakes were done with handheld systems. I mean, that was just no brainer with the ability you had in a handheld system where, God, I mean, we could go forever on those. I mean, every SNES game was remade for the Game Boy Advance. I mean,
yeah, pretty much.
Nintendo's going to make you buy that game twice, and you're going to like it.
I mean, they're still making SNES games like now, and they're putting them out. But yeah, you're right. I have seen a huge resurgence. And, you know, for me, it's not necessarily like remakes or reboots, although I can mention a few that really got me excited over the years that have been released, but also you're seeing old genres that you thought had died, or types of games that people are like, I really liked this game growing up, I'm going to make this game a game like it, you know, and a game like it, like a game both you and I and your dad actually, Baldur's Gate. You remember Baldur's Gate?
Oh, do I remember Baldur's Gate? Fucking Imoen, fucking oh God, Boo,
Minskin Boo, Minskin Boo already. Yeah, the thing about Baldur's Gate was, for those of you who don't know, I will say this. Normally I would recommend people to play it. Totally play it, but understand one thing. It is not fair. Nothing about this game is fair.
No. It's like you're playing a game of D&D, and Chris is your DM. Now, Chris is a lovely gentleman. You'd like to, have dinner with him, discuss the events of the day. But when he's a DM, sometimes, and this, I mean, I wouldn't have any personal experience with it, but there just sometimes would be a greater wyvern would just decide that today he was going to munch on the trees you were near and you would die. Now, it's not that unfair, but there are some instances of, I don't know, dumbass rangers with exploding arrows, motherfucking giant blobs of goo that will just eat your armor.
Or, the classic thing of, all of a sudden that ogre gets a crit and you explode into 100 pieces.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can't res because you are been decapitated. You got a Vorpal hit on you. So your character, the little pictures that represent your character on the side of the screen, whenever I would see one just disappear, it meant they were like obliterated. They couldn't come back. So I would just be like, well, time to hit F5 and reload.
Yep. And I mean, don't get me wrong. It's Baldur's Gate 1 was great. Baldur's Gate 2, arguably in my mind, one of the best RPG stories ever written.
Shadows of Om is unbelievable, and I think it plays by the common D&D trope of start a little higher level, so you have a little bit more options in your your move set, your choices, your character creation, and it starts with a very compelling dungeon. I mean, you're stuck in the mage's dungeon
and no idea why. No idea. You're like, what the fuck?
Imoen's gone, Boo's there, but or Minsk. Wow. Minsk is there. Boo is also there. Very scared. But Yojimbo's, or not Yojimbo. God, what's his name? It's not Yoshimitsu, because that's the
Yoshima.
guy from Yoshima. Oh, that fucker. He betrays you, and he's a really good thief. So you want him in your party as well. Anyway, spoilers. But
for that game, that's easily like 95.
It's whatever. But another really cool thing that I've been seeing is a resurgence of point and clicks.
Yeah.
I was thinking back to when we would play the old Sid Meier's Indiana Jones games, and all of the really Moon Logic things like Grim Fandango.
You even have Sam and Max, which actually plays into the Sam and Max was done by Telltale, and now they're redoing it. They're
right,
and Telltale has just. Honestly, everyone says it's the Walking Dead game, all this, the known franchises. Best game I've ever played from them, Fable. It's not Fable. It's
really?
It's you know what I'm talking about. I'm sorry. It's Fable. It's what am I talking about? Wolf Among Us. I'm sorry. The actual.
I was really confused. No. I was like, Fable. I remember us playing that game. No. That game was okay.
No. I'm sorry. Fables is the comic that Wolf Among Us is based off of. Sorry. I love that comic. I actually read the comic after I played the game, and I'll tell you something. I don't know, personally for me, that point and clicks, I love point and clicks, but I love noir. Oh, I love noir so much, and that's like a classic detective noir in a fantasy setting. I'm like, oh, you have me. You're good. Like, just...
I mean, well, what's interesting is that style. So the Telltale formula is pretty cut and dry. I mean, it's very reminiscent of a lot of games that have gotten big, like Life is Strange, and some of your more walking simulators. But games that are story based and now in 3D environments are essentially point and clicks. Like,
Right.
you have to initiate a story beat. Maybe you have to have a certain item or like be at this very specific location at a specific time. I mean, Firewatch comes to mind. Gone Home.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if that's not a point and click, but just set in a 3D environment, I don't know what is. So you're seeing, well, like you were saying, a lot of genres in sort of a different light, like the wave-based shooter. Like, we were like, okay, yeah, COD kind of brought it back a little bit with their zombies mode, but that wasn't a full game. Now you look at every VR game, they're all wave-based shooters.
Yeah.
That's all they are. That's like, well, a large percentage of them are. But it'll be interesting to see, because I know Space Pirate Trainer is sort of like what's considered like the first one that really do it well. But it'll be interesting to see if there's one that can really get it right.
I mean,
VR was pretty good, but
yeah. I mean, what is a game that you personally, as you're looking through this thing, that you played that you see coming back? What is a game for you that you think is making a resurgence? It could be a reboot or something that did it in a vein of something you remember.
I think a game that is always very interesting to me in terms of what it evokes and what it brings back is a game like Persona. So when you look at where the mainstays of the RPG or the original JRPG genre have gone, I mean, Final Fantasy, 15, say what you will about it, it is very non-traditional JRPG.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's a lot of traditional JRPGs. I mean, look at, Dragon Quest has sort of moved into all these offshoots and not really made like a traditional Dragon Quest in a while, like a numbered sequel. I mean, you had Dragon Quest Builders and Heroes and all this other stuff, but no, next Dragon Quest. And the same could be said with Paper Mario. Paper Mario was an original,
So
very
good. So good.
Oh, it wasn't very traditional JRPG, but the first one was pretty dang close. I mean, but with the Paint one, God, I can't remember what it's called. It's like Paper Mario Paint by Numbers or whatever the fuck.
I'm sorry if that is the actual name.
No, it's not the actual name. I know I never played the new Wii U one. I played Sticker Star and was
Color Splash.
So excited.
Color Splash.
Color Splash. But like a lot of RPGs have moved away from the traditional turn-based, stat-based, character-driven stuff, and Persona's still doing it.
Yeah.
They have just really leaned into evoking a style.
Yeah, absolutely.
Atlas does that exceptionally well. But you just don't see that. You don't see a lot of JRPGs like this that is just not in vogue. It's just not a style that's in vogue, that very traditional RPG style, which is a shame because that's one of my favorite games, like types of games. I love those kinds of RPGs.
Do you ever personally, just on a side tangent, when you just hear possibly the sound effect for like Final Fantasy, that noise it makes when you go up and down the menu during the turn, like the dunk, like when you do that type of thing? That type of thing. And you ever just go, because you're...
No, you know what it is like that noise is like, I always used to joke around with some of my college friends that, you would have like your ATB gauge, and if you're really tired, it would go really slow. But you would have like, move, drink, sleep, and you'd like go down the options, be like doot doot doot, and so like you would have to like go to class, and it'd be like the limit break option because it would be like blocked off. You're like, I'm not really feeling it yet. But the sound that always gets me is the cling, that like higher pitched one, that sort of like chime to let you know, you're about to mess somebody up because your limit is ready or your summon is ready, and it's just like, oh god,
yes.
good. It's so good.
But I mean, you were speaking of Persona, and the other thing I wanted to talk about, because I'm excited. Like you talked about Persona and JRPGs, and I think JRPGs are in a weird place right now because there's a lot of good main series coming out, but you're not. Some of them are very hit or miss lately, which is what happens. But I mean, Final Fantasy is doing well for the first time in fucking forever, in my opinion.
Right. They hit on, it wasn't a smash hit by, commercial standards, but it definitely made money, and that's to say something from how long that development time was and how much they put into it. So
Right.
That's really good to see.
I mean, it's good to see, and I mean, JRPG. It's a weird thing with a JRPG sometimes because sometimes the effect they want to have gets lost in translation, and also with their style, culture clash, and it works out. But what I love about Persona is that it is honestly it's an RPG, yeah, but it's also a mystery story. Usually, every time there's murders or there's something happening. And you're like, what the fuck is happening?
Which is very different from your traditional story because you could have murder mystery or mystery segments in an RPG, but the traditional JRPG is save the world from this unknowable deity and this evil dude,
right.
And something on that. And I think making them smaller and more contained makes them slightly more relatable. And then, you can also play around really well with constantly having to change party members
right.
and locations. And, when you do have a fight, it's a big deal because it's a more grounded story. So it's like, oh crap, we have to fight? What?
Right. And also, I mean, the voice acting is always great, which is, if anyone hasn't figured out by now, that's one of the most important things to me, and that was before I had my job. It's always been that way. But the thing that I love about this is, like I said, Persona 4 took place in a small town, in Japan, and literally that's it. You go to maybe downtown area of the nearby city or something like that, but you don't go much farther than that. And because, like you said, it makes everything so much more personal and contained and relatable, because then I could say, I'm like, yeah, this is a fantasy situation where they go through a TV into, a midnight realm, but it's no, but feasibly, right. All their outside of fantasy interactions, I can relate to, and I can relate to them as characters. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there and Final Fantasy 15 is cool, but how the fuck do I relate to those characters?
Right. There's no grounded element that brings it back. Yeah. I mean, how many Final Fantasies have a prince or royalty in them? I mean, certainly most of the ones back in the SNES, NES.
Sure, but also, to be fair, can I just point out, he's a prince in a realm that is probably one of the most confusing realms I've ever heard of in my life. Just
yeah, it's pretty fucking esoteric. You're like, what the
how does this work? How...
Supposedly Kingsglaive explains a lot of it, but it's
if you need a movie to explain your game, you have problems. Okay? That's just...
I mean, they could have just shown a 2-hour cutscene at the beginning. That would have been pretty dope.
They basically did that with Kingdom Hearts. That was what the tutorial was.
Oh, hold on. The opening to Kingdom Hearts 2. This is always a contentious point for me. I think the opening to Kingdom Hearts 2 is stellar.
Oh, I loved it. But actually, at the same time, when everyone's whenever anybody kind of be like, well, this long tutorial, I'm like, it wasn't a tutorial. That literally set up everything you need to know.
Right. And it's so jarring because it was in none of the promotional stuff. You're like, who the fuck is this, emo
You're not Sora! You're not Sora! Sorry.
Right. Where are your clown shoes? What's happening? What's going on? Bringing it back to the important topics.
Oh, clown shoes! I'm sorry.
No, it was just,
No, just...
Callbacks, baby.
No, and callbacks. But I always... after we talked about that, I did go back and just be like, I really want to know how big these shoes are. It's not a joke, really.
No.
You designed a character with clown shoes. A boy that size should not have shoes that big. If he does, you need to take him to a doctor because he has serious issues. I mean, when you're probably maybe 5'4", maybe, and you have size 13 to 16 shoe, okay, what? And all right.
Side note on the side note, I remember when I decided I was going to play that game and really get into it, is we watched a screenshot. I remember I was at your house. We saw a screenshot, and it was literally Sora talking to Squall, who they call Leon in Kingdom Hearts, and I will never forgive them for that. But I will kind of forgive them for that because Squall's in there. And I just saw
they call it Cloud. You know, that doesn't make sense.
I know, it's so dumb. I think maybe because he's a more prominent character. I mean, Cloud just sort of like appears every now and again. Like you kind of fight with him in 2, but he's like not really a fixture except for like this one like cameo he makes in the, you know,
and he plays
Coliseum
his dark and brooding self like I have so many problems in the world.
I also don't like that they make him the Advent Children Cloud, but I can get behind that. I mean, it's like, you know, they were trying to sell their movie. I mean, Advent Children hadn't come out yet, so whatever.
Yeah.
But I saw him talking to Squall, and I was like, I'm in. I don't care what else. I'm Donald, Goofy, Mickey, whatever. Fuck it. Like, can I hang out with Squall? Yes. Dope. Let's do it.
Dope. Yes. Yes. Colin, you haven't proceeded in the game. You're just standing next to him the whole game.
Dope.
He's been like this for 3 days.
Excuse me, I don't think you got the gist of what I was saying. Dope.
And with that, we need to take a quick break. And
those in the audience that don't know, I really like the game Final Fantasy VIII.
One podcast, I'm going to let you talk about Final Fantasy VIII. And
I mean, one. We need one.
And when that happens, I'm going to leave the room and just let you go. And I'll come back in like what? Like what do you think? Like 35 to 40 minutes? You can keep it short, or what?
I mean, if we go into the music, it's going to be a full hour. But if I keep it to just the game and the story and everything else. Okay, so moving into our break, I just want to point out that this game is not going to come up in our next upcoming segment because this is a very personal game to me, and I don't feel as though everyone should play it. So I'll just let that marinate while you wait through the break.
Okay.
And
I'm going to go talk words at people during our break, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
We'll see you guys in a bit.
Hey guys, Chris here at your break as usual. I mean, this is now becoming a thing where I just talk to you in the middle and break up the podcast and you all get sick of hearing my voice. That's pretty much what's happening right now. I really want to thank you guys for listening. I have seen the support and comments and messages that you guys really do enjoy it, and it's very heartwarming because this is slowly becoming my favorite thing of every week because I love just talking with Colin, and we don't get to do it enough, and I say that all the time, but I really mean it. It's one of my favorite things I get to do. So I just want to be here to remind you, like, comment, subscribe, and share the show with your friends. I'd love people to listen to this more. I'd love feedback. I'd love a discussion. What do you want us to talk about? What are topics? Please just either comment down below or comment on the Soundcloud, which there will be a link to this in the description, as well as you can tweet at me at @defunstable, DEF unstable, or you can tweet at Colin at Heyimbadd with 2 Ds because he's terrible at Twitter, or you can, comment on something on Instagram when I post stuff about the podcast. I'm at Definitely Unstable on Instagram. You can follow it there. Also, check out the other stuff on the channel. I'm starting to really ramp up other things that are going on during the channel. Right now, it's just Let's Plays, but I promise you more things are coming. But please feel free to share, add comments, add discussion. We really would love to hear from you. So, I'm really happy you're listening to this. Like I said, this is one of my favorite things to do during my week, and I'm not going to take up any more of your time, so let's just get right back to the show.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Name Not Found. Now, normally, Chris and I talk about nonsensical, ridiculous, and non-existent things. So, with that being said, why don't we talk about GameStop?
Ooh. Harsh, sir.
I mean,
sir.
General Counsel would like to speak to the presiding judge.
Objection. I like that stricken from the record. It's okay. Actually, this is something I just read today. This is actually a story from Polygon, but it brings an overall discussion I want to have. But I'm just gonna read you kind of the headline. But it said that GameStop. Wow, that just the games about chicken stock. Anyways, GameStop. They took a real beating this holiday season, which is pretty much the biggest time for selling games, as everyone knows in the gaming industry. That's really where everyone, it's like, well, I used to get tons of games during Christmas because that's all I'd ask for. But they took a huge beating, and they're going to close about 150 stores in 2017. And I'm not sure whether that's kind of what I call the Starbucks thing, where they're like, Starbucks is over, they're closing a bunch of stores, and I'm like, no, they're closing the ones where you had a Starbucks across from a Starbucks, and that was stupid.
Right.
So they're getting rid of those stores and centralizing, and that's a smart business move. But even so, there weren't that many GameStop. There were a lot of them, but not nearly as many as that. I think the general topic, and what I'll put to you personally, is, do you think because of this, with everything and digital downloads and media and how everything pretty much, I can just get any game off the internet, do you really think that, a box store in a mall, it really still has a place in the video game industry?
So I definitely want to answer your question, but I also want to point out that I had a really awesome pun, and that is that GameStop slow decline is like the horse getting made obsolete by the steam-powered engine. You like that?
Yeah.
Okay, so seriously, I think they do, but not in as large a percentage of the market share as they used to. And so let me really explain. So obviously, I mean, when you go to a GameStop now, I mean, I think anybody who's listening can relate. If you're going to buy a PC game, even if you buy the box, there's no physical copy. You're not getting a disc with the PC game. If you're going to buy World of Warcraft, if you're going to buy the next new MMO, they're literally giving you a key to Origin, to Steam, to GOG, or whatever, whatever client that they made the best deal with so that they could make their box. But I think that these game stores sort of do have a place, and it'll be very interesting to see, sort of to my second point, where they branch out. But the first major use of a box store is in our console market. So right now we definitely have digital downloads for consoles. You can buy games online, you can download them to your console, and that's great. But we're seeing some pretty rough things with download speeds, especially on PSN. The PSN.
Oh yeah, PSN is like it'll at one moment you have the fastest download speed of your life, and then it's just the crawl.
Right.
It's a horrible crawl.
Now imagine you've got to download, the new the new Final Fantasy game. Well,
I downloaded Horizon Zero Dawn. Trust me, I know.
Yeah, how long did that take you?
A day.
Right. So that's a day of no gaming. But what a box store can provide is, hey, here's Horizon Zero Dawn on disc. You can play it right when you get home. And there's still definitely a market for that, especially with everybody getting, more and more restrictions from their ISP on download limits and download speeds in rural areas. That's super big, where the infrastructure isn't there. Obviously, that'll get less and less as we get better infrastructure and we get more space on our gaming consoles. But also, I mean, games have gotten bigger. So, we have the fastest speeds we've had ever, but now we're downloading 60 gig games, not 5 gig games. Hell, I specifically remember installing Final Fantasy 11 on my old PC, and it was a 7 gig game off 4 discs, and I had 16 gigs of space. So I was like, well, my phone now has more space than that. But
well, yeah,
that was 2000.
I agree with you to a certain extent. I mean, I think it also has to do with the infrastructure of the network itself, like not internet or stuff like that. But I also think it is because Steam. I mean, I'm getting extremely fast downloads to where if I had something the size of Horizon Zero Dawn to download, it would have taken me maybe 2 hours, 3 hours, because Steam has optimized it, but they have a massive server farm that's just like that, because that's all they do as a company is do this now. But as it grows, I think they will start to fade for now, but I definitely think they're definitely on the downward end over the years as they go towards, because as this starts to update, I don't know if they're going to remain relevant, personally. I will read you something that I just read in the article as you were talking, and I had to stop myself from laughing. All I'm going to say is one of these listed is not like the other, but it said, for its part, GameStop said it was hurt by aggressive console promotions by other retailers on Thanksgiving and Black Friday. All right, the companies that they listed, and you can pick out to me which one of these definitely is not like.
I'm ready.
They had Amazon, Walmart, Best Buy, Toys R Us, and Target. I want to ask you a question, Colin. When's the last time that you ever heard somebody getting things from Toys R Us that was over the age of, I don't know, 7?
That's a good question. I actually, that's really funny you bring that up, because I put those all in the same category, and then I realized I hadn't walked into a Toys R Us.
I hadn't seen one in that long.
That's true. Well, that's because, well, I can't say for sure this is the unequivocal reason that there are no more or less Toys R Us's than we think. It's that, I mean, we've got Legos, but like action figures are not a great cost benefit anymor. Physical toys are not as big a deal as they used to be, and now Walmart, Target, your multi-purpose stores have more capital and more room to sort of buy up those, little knickknacks. So those specialty stores aren't as needed anymore.
Yeah, and I also think that, but to my point, I'm like, I have rarely heard of a Toys R Us selling like game stuff. The last thing I heard was that they had amiibos. And
those are Toys R Us all the way. I mean, think about how many kids want a goddamn hell, how many fully grown adults want an amiibo.
I think it's creepily mostly adults, but still, amiibos are cool. I have a few here, but when I would see a line of everyone for a NES figure, I went, dude, I'm not waiting for that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not waiting for like a NES thing that's gonna cost me $30.
$30 if you're lucky.
If you're lucky, depends on eBay, but. I mean, the overall point, sorry, a little bit of a tangent. The overall point is that I think box stores, I think that's just a weak call, because I don't think games are selling that well in, physical stores that well at all, because, GameStop, to its credit, rarely admits that it's losing the battle to digital, because they don't want to admit that. But it's just one of those things that, they're really the only place where you can buy a console. And honestly, if I wanted to buy a Switch, right, I would much rather get it from Amazon, because I don't have to wait in line.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, I don't care. Personally, this is me. I don't care about a 24-hour day of release. I'm like, all right, well, I can get it that day. Cool. It'll be here. Like I'll pay for 1-day shipping. Cool. And I just think stuff like that, as the digital world's evolving, these things are slowly becoming irrelevant. Now, I think that's also a huge thing on everything overall. I mean, are things like Amazon making all materials kind of, sort of, maybe, but that's like a whole different argument.
That's a whole
that
other
you can have.
Conversation. I think one big thing to keep in mind as well is when you're looking at tangible goods, those are sort of, because of the nature of how we interface with things as humans, I think they're always going to have a place. Now, does that necessarily mean GameStop always is going to have a place? No. But my second point I was going to make is that those action figures and things, I mean, look at what GameStop could do with selling game-related paraphernalia.
They do actually.
Well, I know they do, but I'm saying that they're probably going to move way more into that and try to consolidate that, and also work on sort of being more like. I feel like they should act less like a box store and need to act more like a hobby shop, but just with a little bit more capital. You know how you walk.
And when they sell like limited edition things and all that, yeah.
But you know how you go into your hobby shop, you want to grab like a pack of Magic cards, or you're grabbing this comic. Like, I feel like if GameStop moves in there and sort of becomes more like, not like the Spencers of video games, but sort of combines like the way comic media or like games related media, whether it's like Halo books or like the Overwatch
Right.
shorts and comics, like I feel like if they pinch in there and like also have their maybe less of them, but physical games, I feel like there's a definite market there. I mean, gamers love to commune and they love to come together. I mean, hell, we just talked about PAX, how big that is, and what you can go play games, buy stuff related to games, and so there's definitely a market there. So I mean, that's all very like business 101. So I'm sure they've thought of it, but it'd be interesting to see how they pivot as they are slowly getting cannibalized by the digital market.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say is, like, to your point, I think because you have this huge rise in game stores, and when I say game stores, not video games, but more like board games, D&D books, comic book stores, there's actually a lot of them popping up all over the place because actually board gaming is becoming huge recently. Like,
there's a need for personal connection in this disconnected world.
Exactly, and the fact that I think it's a misstep on GameStop part, not going, we should totally go that way at least a little bit, not all the way, just go over there, and so I think they relied on the model of being, I guess, trying to be relevant by offering exclusive pre-orders. Well, you're going to your store and paying ahead of time for a wait in line, okay, because I think that's one of the biggest problems personally, is to wait in line just so I can have a unique gun skin is kind of like, well, I can just get it delivered to my door,
right,
or I can download it now. So that's really all I'm gonna say, because we've gone on way longer than I expected on this, but it's just kind of, and we don't actually have to have this answer because this is something that's going to develop. I just think this is more of just like,
No, Chris, I actually just talked to the professor and we need this answer in the next 10 minutes. So,
oh shit, this is like college all over again.
Ooh,
Let me go home now.
Hold on, if this is just like college, can we procrastinate by doing one of our favorite things?
Talking about games and how we should play them?
Right. No, but not specifically that. We make stupid, random criteria up for how we talk about games. So I was thinking we could pitch the -2 listeners, because we negatively lost a listener, or we positively lost a listener.
Oh, I stopped listening to what you were saying, like literally.
So our -3 listeners, 3 games that from myself and from you that everyone, that anybody who wants to get into games should play. And
okay.
Anybody. Okay. Do you want me to start, or do you want to start?
Why don't you start? Let me get my little timer.
Also, part of our random criteria, because we totally didn't talk about this beforehand. This is all, on the fly. We didn't plan this,
Oh, we don't plan anything.
No prep whatsoever.
No, there's no prep in this. What are you talking about?
We are, meticulously unrefined. I'll put it that way. We're going to give ourselves a minute. So we got a minute to sell this. I can start right now. Just give me a go and I'll get into my pitch.
And go.
The game I'm pitching to everyone listening is Super Smash Bros. Melee for the Nintendo GameCube. Do you like beating up your friends? I like beating up your friends. Do you like Nintendo? Most people do like Nintendo. Do you like playing with 25 unbelievable characters from Nintendo? I know I do. So do you want to play with 3 people? Cool. Do you want to play with 4 people? Also cool. Do you want to play you versus your homie? You can do that. If you don't want to know anything about the competitive scene, you don't need to know anything about the competitive scene. You can just play with items on Pokefloats. No one cares. That sounds fucking awesome. That sounds really fun. But if you want a game that goes so deep that today we found out a new technique for recovering against Marth's counter, you can go that deep and you can see hype people like Armada and Mango and HBox, and you can watch them play and understand what they're doing. It's the most elegantly simple design.
Time.
Oh, I'm just going to get into why it's a platform fighter. And
no.
All right, I failed. Okay, cool.
No. That's actually a pretty good pitch, actually, right there. And we'll actually talk just 1 second before we do the next pitch. So you think Melee is the most? Is that like your number one, or is that like is this just a free form list?
No particular order. The reason I chose it, just as for me, is that I think it appeals to a very wide. I believe it's a flexible game. There are so many people who you can just play that game and just you don't need to know anything about it, and it's so fun. And yet you can also dive deep and find like this rewarding like experience of like where practice like is very rewarding and like you're really feeling tested and like challenged like a Dark Souls or like a game made specifically for that. And I feel like, not many games can say that. And I feel like that's so cool. And I feel like everybody should at least, dip their toe in both sides. Like whether you just want to like learn how to, make your friends like hate you with Pikachu's thunder, or really learn the basics and like go to a tournament or like watch a tournament, and see what you can do with the game. So that was my impetus for picking.
Okay, well, before I get you on the next one, the only thing the reason I like what you said is that the important part I think about what makes a good game is that there's an easy into the game. Okay, well, realistically, and I know there's a whole bunch to it, there are really like 3 buttons you need to know for Smash.
That's why it's so, literally what I was going to say before I reached my time limit is it's simple. There ain't no combos. You make the combos. If you can hit them, great. You got A for your regulars, you got B for your specials, and you got jump. You got shield and jump. So I guess, there's 4 buttons. So, but
But, realistically, that's all it works with. Okay. I don't know if I can do this in a minute, but we're gonna go with this one.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3, go.
Okay, so the one I want to talk about is Homeworld 2, or there's Homeworld 2 Remastered that just came out. All right, so take space, really cool, right? So then take strategy and a whole bunch of awesome looking ships with moving guns. Actually, the guns move and you can see them fire, which is awesome. And you build a huge armada and fight ships in outer space. Now, the cool part is, unlike most games which work on a linear plane, this is full 360-degree movement where you go around, you move, you can tell your ships to go up or down, you can flank them in different directions. There ranges from tiny little fighters to giant battle cruisers that literally from a distance you can see their particles lighting up the space around them, and it's so cool. Sound is amazing. It's so detailed and just, it's awesome and almost just breathtaking when you play this game. And also the campaign is so compelling, and that honestly is pretty much all I would say about it.
Whoa, you hit exactly a minute and I hate you. It's literally, I stopped it at 59.91 when you said, and that's all I have to say about it. 59 seconds and 91 milliseconds. So you suck. But okay, so like when did Homeworld come out? I remember you playing it, but like when did it come out?
Homeworld, I think, hang on, let me just look up Homeworld 2 release. I think it was Homeworld 2 came out in 2003 was the initial release date.
Ooh, that's an older one.
But the thing is just that, it was really great at the time. But then Gearbox, the guys who made Borderlands, remastered both the first game and the second one, and beautifully updated them and made them. And also, the biggest part about those games is they had huge mod support, and people would turn. And I kid you not, you'll like this. They turned so that full 3D space in battles. There's a guy that turned it into Star Wars, and then there's a guy that turned it into Gundam. All right, and
mods
it's like
are great.
Mods are great, and so it's literally. I had a lot of games that defined me from a strategic sense, but that game is one of the reasons I love space, and also one of the reasons I love strategy games, because it's got so much depth in the end that isn't perceived. It doesn't teach you it. You just kind of go, oh shit, okay. So if I move that and okay, and making fleets and stuff like that, and also I make it sound complicated. It's really not. It's really, literally, once you learn the keys for like telling them to move and giving orders, you're like, oh, I just build the things, send them over there, and I could get more in detail if I wanted to, but it's just, I love it.
So you feel like
so
it's a
much fun.
relatively low like skill entry, but like there's like it's just so rewarding with like what you can do and like how they present it that it just makes it like a really good like experience.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Cool.
It's got this very low thing, and it's just, and also visually, it's just one of those things that when you just see a battle happening, it did take my breath away when I was a kid. Like it just was like, oh, this is awesome. All right. So you ready for your next one?
I am.
Okay. So in 3, 2, 1, go.
The game I'm going to pitch is called Faster Than Light, or FTL. If you've ever played, hell, if you know about someone who's talked about Oregon Trail, this is Oregon Trail in space with a Star Trek vibe. This is not a long game, and the game can be finished within an hour to an hour and a half, but the replayability is what really brings this game home. It is a difficult game. It is a game that is punishing, it is unforgiving, and it doesn't give you a second chance. Except in that you can retry, and you can name your crew members, and you can journey throughout the galaxy finding new story points, new benefits, and graced with an unbelievable soundtrack that just, brings you along the whole way. What really brings this game home for me is the strategy implemented with the space battles, the context of the world that you're in, but finally, what really brings this game home is how it all fits together in a concise package. That's all I got.
Okay. I let you go by over 2 seconds, but I'm okay with it. You were mid-word. I didn't want to interrupt you.
I may or may not have thought to myself, oh God, oh God, oh God, there's no time left. What am I going to say? And then forgot what I was going to say. But like the way I was sort of thinking about this list is not as like my favorite games of all time. Like I was going to say, like, if we're going to do that, guess what's going to be on the list? Ocarina of Time.
Oh yeah, but what you
fucking
should play?
Super Smash Bros. Melee. Like Super Smash Bros. Melee is on both lists, but whatever, that's fine. But I feel like this game is so intuitive. Like it's just like you got a ship, you got your little dudes on your ship, and you just sort of go. And it's like such a basic concept, but executed so well. I mean, it's just the story is real good, the soundtrack is so good. It just like hits every point in this like bite-sized amount, and yet the replay value is like infinity. It's so cool. Like I really can recommend this game enough to actually non-gamers. Like I feel like non-gamers would still enjoy this.
Oh, absolutely. I love FTL. It's so just good, and it's not difficult. I'd say the learning curve is learning like certain aspects, like how opening doors gets rid of fires and can kill people and stuff, and working door management and putting people in certain rooms. But that's like I'd say after your first run or your second run, you've got it. Like you know what you're doing, at least on a basic level. And because you can literally die within the first, I don't know, 2 jumps.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, well, you'll learn. And don't get me wrong, it's not like a huge learning curve. It's just like
it's not an easy game, but it's not the game is fair. That's what it's really cool about it. Like if you understand the game, like you can sometimes feel like you're being screwed, but in normal mode you can totally beat it. I, however, hate myself and play on hard mode and try to win with the win conditions, which are really difficult, and it's hard.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's more like a puzzle game, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like, when you really think about it, there's an action element to a puzzle game. But yeah, so, that is definitely a game. That is a good fucking choice. I wish I had thought of that. But
yes, suck it.
We have nothing but love in this family. You guys can hear that.
Yeah.
I love you, fucker. All right. So
ready to
there
go?
it is. I am, sir.
Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
So the game I wanted to talk about is Hacknet. So basically, speaking of puzzles, it is a puzzle game. It's one of those games where it's like you're a hacker, obviously by the name, but you type in different codes and you try to solve a puzzle about how to break through firewalls and all this stuff. It has this oddly compelling story and an amazing soundtrack, and it's a completely indie developer guy. I think it's done by one guy, and it's absolutely just, from the story, it seems like, oh, you just type in code, but it just becomes this thing of like, what is going on right now? And you really just need to play it. It's just one of these things of, I would just tell people, get it, download it, play it, you won't regret it. And that's it.
Damn.
Where am I at?
41 seconds. Really so I've heard of games like Hacknet. Is it sort of like the story more like, why are you hacking, or like, are you hacking for the right reasons? Is it sort of like, or is it like a meta thing where it's like, is this the game, or am like, I like, you know what I mean? Like there are definitely games with hacking that like are very meta in that you like hack the actual game. Well, not hack, but you like change the actual game you're playing, or like you're doing stuff in relation to a game. Like what's this context here?
Okay, I'm trying to figure out how I can say this without giving anything away.
Yeah, that's fair. So
the way I would put it is, you're here, you just start out as, in a normal type of way, you start out as like guy hacking, trying to get work and do a job type of thing, and then you start delving a little deeper, and you run into this thing of this project that, oh, what the fuck, you know, it, like data mining and stuff like that, and it's really cool. But here's a cool thing I'll point out, right? So, it actually helps you if you memorize, like there are programs you can run in the game. So, you know, it's just like for this firewall, instead of, you can click it, but it ends up being slower. So it actually, you want to type it out. So you end up just typing. So you feel like you're actually doing this and there's actually something happening. And unlike a lot of other hacking things where it's just like, tap, 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 it's done. It's like, no. You're being scanned and being traced, and you have to be like, I gotta run these 4 programs, and you have to wait until they're all done and then just be ready with the next command to go as soon as it's over, and then quickly go through. It punishes you if you don't erase your trail and go through the files and delete all the logs, and all this other stuff. And one of the coolest parts, and I'll point out, and that's the last thing I'll say about it, is there's a moment where somebody hacks into your system and they delete your system file, right? So it shuts down the game, and what happens is you literally go to like a little command prompt thing, and you almost freak out. It's like, did my computer just crash? What the fuck just happened? Right. And then all of a sudden it brings up the reboot screen, and it says system file not found. Cannot find, going to emergency mode, and you have to go from, while you would normally have this screen where you could click on different things to get to certain places, now you're in a command prompt, and you have to manually hack into the guy that hacked you just to go into his files and copy his system file over to you, so you can actually get it back. And it's just
like all within the game, but like using elements to make it like more impactful meta wise. And that's really cool. And
it's also like, I think it's, hang on, I'll look it up right now. I think, and also I also saying this because I was a little excited because it's releasing a new DLC, like story expansion, tomorrow. Or actually, it would be, when this goes up, it would have already been released. So it'll be called Hacknet Labyrinth. But you can buy Hacknet. Hacknet's like $10 on Steam. And it's just, 100% just one of those things of, I had such an enjoyable experience. And I typically don't like those hacking games. I just picked it up in a pack and played it. And I was like, wow, this is good.
Sick.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. So, are you ready, sir?
Oh, I'm ready.
Oh, you are? Okay, for your third and final game. 3, 2, 1, go.
The third and final game I have is The Last of Us. We often talk in, gaming community about gameplay emulating story. I have not ever played a game where the gameplay emulates the story as well as The Last of Us. It's a story about a post-apocalyptic world and how our characters deal with it. 2 very, very well voice-acted characters, in Ellie and Joel, and their relationship is sort of the centerpiece of the entire story, as well as the gameplay. You're protecting Ellie, without giving away spoilers. Maybe those roles reverse. But you are never powerful in that game. You're always looking for ammo. You're always scavenging. You're always hiding or sneaking. It's reminiscent of Metal Gear and its stealth, and yet Uncharted and some great action games and its actual action segments. But I will, to the end of my gaming experience, never forget how beautifully
time
ties itself up at the end. God damn.
I think I went a little bit over.
No,
but it's okay.
That's fine. I suck. I'm really not
No,
good at
dude.
pitching things in a minute. I'll have to give myself the Gettysburg Address rule, which is if you don't have anything good or meaningful to say in 2 minutes, which is how long the Gettysburg Address took, then you should shorten it. I can't remember. There was like one of my speech teachers would always say that. It's like, cut it to 2. And we're like, what? You're telling us to like give a thesis, and it's like, yep. Well, can you do it in the Gettysburg Address time? If not, tighten it. And you're like, I hate it.
Dude, my public speaking teacher used to teach me. Like, he used to actually have a timer behind us when we were doing our presentations in class, and we would actually run. And if we went over, oh man, we couldn't say anymore. We weren't allowed. Mm-hmm. It wasn't allowed. And also, I know there's people here, but my dad is just, he's a constant salesman and a pitch guy, and it just carries over into my brain. For me, at least.
Very little about games, but I bet you if we like gave him what the game was, he could pitch it like so well.
Probably. I don't doubt it.
Like Oregon Trail, but in space. Great. Okay. Do you guys like Star Trek? I like Star Trek.
This and I want to buy this now. Yeah. Let's see where I'm actually having this problem because I'm debating between 2 games, and I've been debating the whole time.
I was doing that as well. The other game that I was debating was Chrono Trigger, because I feel like that's another game that does that well.
That is one, yeah.
Yeah, Chrono Trigger definitely does that really well, and I feel kind of bad for not picking it, but I stand by those picks as games that I think like would appeal to the widest variety of people. I think like between those 3 games, like anybody who's listening, whichever one spoke the most to you, I feel like you could play that game and like it. Honestly, I feel like that covers every base. It covers a narrative, it covers replayability, and it covers like, sort of like fun competition. Like I feel like it's all the things that I like about games in like.
What am I gonna say? Oh yeah, the I will just give the honorable mention after I've said this one.
Cool.
So, okay, fine. I don't want to pick. Oh, fine. All right, I'm just gonna do this one because I actually think the other one I think a lot of people have played. Yeah, you know what? Fine. I'll do actually the other one. Fuck it.
Cool.
Go for it.
1, 2, 3, go.
This one I would say is Final Fantasy Tactics. Final Fantasy Tactics is it's not your typical Final Fantasy game. Obviously, it's a more strategy element wise. You pick classes and different characters as they level up, and it's very good. But it's very cool from a tactical sense and very different. Soundtrack's great, but what I would say is, once again, hammers on this, the story is amazing in this game. More so, in my opinion, than any other Final Fantasy, as much as Colin or anyone else might disagree with me. I think its story is just so compelling, and it moves so well. And because it was one of the first games I ever played that had permadeath, so that, it just adds just this whole other layer that you need to play this game. And that's it, I think.
I couldn't agree more with the fact that somebody needs to play this game. I'd argue that there might be personally, I'm such a Final Fantasy VIII fanboy. It's sad. It's just sad. Because I feel like it's the only Final Fantasy game to get the love story right. And that
I agree. I agree with you.
You know what I mean? Like, when you really look at Final Fantasy games, so many have tried and not done it, and Final Fantasy VIII it pays it off. But the thing about Tactics, which I can't
it's a great war story, man.
Yeah, that's what it is. It is about war. It's not about something else, and it's not sugarcoating it. People die. There's some bullshit that happens. There's it's based off War of the Roses, which if you base shit off history, fucking George R. Martin based Game of Thrones off War of the Roses. So that might give you a sense of how crazy some of this shit gets. And so,
dude.
I
can delete them, man.
And it's so basic in what it does. It's not a complicated system. It is a square-based, grid-based, turn-based tactics game. You know what it is I think they sort of took a little baby taste of Fire Emblem with their war stories, stuff like that, but put the sort of more mystical, high fantasy rather than more grounded in realism. Which Final Fantasy and Fire Emblem are now sort of taking pages out of each other's books.
Absolutely,
people should play the Path of Radiance, Radiant Dawn, the GameCube Fire Emblems. I think are 2 of the best.
You're gonna hate me, but I think I have not played a Fire Emblem to this date. I don't remember them, but I'm gonna have to. No, I have to.
You should play Path of Radiance. It's so good.
I'll definitely have to do that, and then I'll come on the next podcast going, dude.
That's true. We could very well do that. All I'm gonna say is, I fight for my friends, and I rest my case on Path of Radiance.
I'm totally gonna play that now. But the thing with tactics that always got me, wasn't just like, yeah, you get cool abilities and there are cool classes. Always make Ramses a monk. It's OP. You're gonna win the game. Anybody who's playing that, make him a monk. That's all you need to know. Okay, get him squire abilities, get him focus, make him a monk. You're gonna win.
JP up, baby. JP up all day.
Yep. All day. Now, beyond that, do whatever you like. I mean, there's optimal things, but whatever. But there are just some moments in that game, and it was just. There's this one moment with Wiglaf, and he turns into this beast, and you all of a sudden, do you remember this where he turns into Ares? Do you remember this?
Oh yeah, I remember that fight.
Yeah. But here's the thing is, and this isn't like a spoiler or anything because there's a lot leading up to that. But he turns into this thing, and normally you fight with a party. And then, but you just like, oh, usually what happens is you get in a cutscene and sometimes it's just you. And you're like, oh, well, my party's going to appear behind me right at the end and I'll fight him. Right? Nope. It's just you. And I'm
fucked so hard by that the first
I had to reload and level more because I was like, fuck.
The only time I ever emulator scummed, because I was playing it on an emulator, but I used, I didn't want to, take away from the experience by doing too many quick loads, and I really refrained from doing that when I emulate. I had to go back to an old save state because if you save in that town, you can't move.
Yeah, that's what happened to me, dude.
They fixed it in the PSP, which the War of the Lions, I think it's called, or it's something like that. Where that I think is the definitive game, where if you can play the PSP version or the PS3 or PS4, not like virtual console, but they like re-released it for that console as well. That's supposedly the best version. But I played the PS1 fucking emulated version, and you can't leave that town when. So me with Force Punch and Thunder. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing: is I had that frustrating moment where I kept doing it. I finally made it to where my full party got to me, and then all of a sudden it's like he wiped my entire party to the floor. Like he wiped the floor.
Doesn't he cast Meteor? Isn't he?
Yeah, he starts casting Meteor. I knew when he one-shot KO'd my freaking samurai that I was like, okay, yeah.
Back to the drawing board.
But we're getting into details about games, and we're being super, which is what this podcast is about. But we are pretty much out of time, and and knowing. You and I, we could be like, dude, you remember this thing and all these? Because Final Fantasy Tactics is so good.
So much to talk about. And that's why we do this, though, is that we could go forever. But we're not, because I need to actually go to sleep at some point. It is
so do I.
2 a.m. on the East Coast right now. So
it's 11 right now, and I've got an early morning call, so that's going to be fun.
Yeah, me too. So. Yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. I'm sure Chris told you during the break, but, more than, obviously subscribe, whatever. But if there's one person who you think would be interested, just show them a podcast. Say, hey, these are these two dumbasses talking about games. I think you might like it. And that's all we ask, because we think it would be cool if, we could, talk to more people about games.
Yeah, because that's all we want to do is talk to people about games, because we like them.
And we're going to be like the Jehovah's Witnesses Templar, where we're going to be like, have you heard the good word about video games?
Video games? Oh, Jesus Christ, they're back again. We got to go.
And with that being said, we'll catch y'all later. This is Colin.
This is Chris.
This has been Named Not Found. Peace.